Good morning, brothers and sisters. Pastor Steve here. Hope your Christmas month, the month of December, is off to a good start, that you've got your Christmas shopping done, all your parties planned, your family gatherings on the calendar. But I also trust that you are just being really consistent in God's Word, in worship, and praying for your one, for those who are lost, and inviting people to church as well. Today in our devotion, we are reading Matthew chapter 10, and this is the chapter where Jesus sends the 12 out on a evangelistic preaching ministry, if you will. And so what spoke to my heart is some of the verses in here where Jesus described for us what it's like to do evangelism in a sometimes hostile culture. He told the 12 as they were going out to share the gospel what they could expect, what things would be like. And since our culture is essentially the same as theirs, all of that applies to us. So we can learn what it's like, what we can expect when we share the gospel in today's culture that sometimes is, receptive, but other times is not and can even be hostile. What Jesus said to the 12 and to us, starting in verse 16 of chapter 10, he said, "Behold, I send you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. So be shrewd as serpents and innocent as doves." Some of the people you encounter, some of the situations you experience will be hostile. It'll be like an innocent sheep among wolves wanting to devour it. That's just the reality sometimes. What he says, though, is when you encounter that, don't act like the wolf. He says instead, be shrewd as serpents and innocent as doves. That we need to be wise, we need to be prudent, we need to be smart, we need to be shrewd, if you will, not naive, but also innocent as doves, maintaining integrity, maintaining innocence and purity and sweetness and beauty. It's risky because as you and I encounter hostility, if we're not careful, we can begin acting more like the wolves and less like the lamb, less like sheep. And we need to remember who we are and be prudent, be shrewd, but be innocent. And don't throw away your witness by acting like the world or like the culture. He says in verse 18, there will be times you'll be brought before governors and kings for my sake. And we know from the New Testament and from history that very thing happened in the book of Acts, the Apostle Paul. But the same principle is true when you're brought up before supervisors or legal things here in America today, people who have some say over your life or your career. He said, when that happens for my sake, because of your witness for Jesus, because of your discipleship, what you need to remember is that you are there as a testimony to them and to the Gentiles. So while we care about our careers and we care about being accepted, we are to care more about being a witness for Jesus. That He puts us in circumstances sometimes for the purpose of us being a testimony. And if we're going to be a testimony for Jesus, both the message and our demeanor matter. So the message, the gospel, but our demeanor. That's why he said when you're out there among those wolves, remember that you're still a sheep. And therefore be shrewd, but be innocent. Don't throw away your innocence. So your demeanor is important, as is the gospel, the message. He goes on to say more about that in verse 24 and verse 25. He said, as a disciple is not above his teacher, nor a slave above his master, it is enough for the disciple that he become like his teacher. That he become like his teacher. He said, listen, it happened to me, it's going to happen to you. And what's important is when it happens to you, that you act like he did. That you become like your teacher. You remember when Jesus was on trial before Pontius Pilate? How did he act? Shrewd, but innocent. He didn't return insult for insult. He didn't become angry. He didn't lash out. He was shrewd, but he was also maintained his integrity, his innocence. When Jesus was hanging on the cross and they were mocking him, making fun of him, how did he act? Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. And so for you and me in 2021, going into 2022, in our culture that is increasingly hostile at times to the gospel message, don't act like them. Act like our lamb. We're his sheep, so act like the lamb. And he reminds us in verses 26, 27, and 28 not to fear people, because the worst they can do is kill your body. You need to have more reverence and fear for God, who can cast your soul into hell for eternity. So keep things in perspective and just be faithful. But don't throw away your character by acting like the wolves. Now, this is Christmas month, December. One of the best times of the year to invite people to church, to invite people to Christmas Eve services. Jesus is sending you out into the culture, out into the world, out into the community. So go, and take the gospel with you, invite people, and then remember, your demeanor also matters. I hope you will be inviting people to church this Christmas, telling people about Jesus this Christmas, and do it with kindness and gentleness and sweetness. Innocent as a dove, while shrewd as a servant. God bless you. I'll see you tomorrow.